Before we begin the presentation, I just wanted to set the context for the evening and really set the context for the years ahead as well. So first of all, Mrs. Clark already said it, sure, have us on speed dial. We value the opportunity to speak to you because we're collaborators in helping your sons get through the process. I shouldn't say get through the process. Manage the process is really the better expression here. So we're collaborators with you in guiding your sons as they progress in their prep careers and in their lives, particularly in this challenging and pivotal time. Challenging for what your sons have been through and for what they're going to go through as they balance all of the things that really kind of reach out to them. Academic success, obviously activities, things like that, those things that make them who they are. New learning routines. Obviously each year is going to bring that as well. And pivotal as they develop a greater awareness of their own strengths, their own interests, their own talents. So it's that pivotal time as well. And a sense of direction, all of which are important as they expand their energy and focus and delve into college planning. Times of challenge and change can cause your sons to focus on the new and the unfamiliar, and they will. However, we encourage them to also focus on those things that they know from their experiences here over the first 2 years. So for example, we encourage them to be aware of what they've achieved, both their personal lives and then their academic lives in terms of their growth. We also encourage them to focus on their growing sense of their own interests and their emerging goals. In fact, those are the conversations that we have with them in the counseling office as school counselors and certainly as college counselors as well. And then we also encourage them to depend on the strength and the caring support of the prep community. Yes, in our office, but the prep community. And they're going to engage that in a very special way in the next 2 years. Many of the questions that you and your sons may have will be addressed in the year ahead. And as they and you move ahead in the college process, know that we as college counselors, and again, school and college work together, we'll go through that in a second, but we as college counselors have really good relationships with college admissions departments all throughout the nation. And we monitor the airwaves of change in a world of college admissions to keep your sons and you advised as to the changes that are happening and how to address them. We are ready to walk with your sons as we at Prep challenge them to define themselves, defining years ahead, and to decide, based on those definitions, future steps ahead. And as they learn to represent themselves. I think that's one of the big steps that your sons will be taking over the next couple of years. They'll meet college representatives. Some of them may have been at the college fair recently and met college reps. And so representing themselves is something that they're going to learn as well. Junior year will familiarize them with essential college preparation steps as they identify appropriate college options. We position our sophomore parents tonight really at the end of sophomore year because it's at this point that your sons can look ahead from the vantage point of having nearly 2 full academic years and 2 full years of academic record, along with a PSAT, a pre-ACT, and of course, the growth and development in those other areas of their lives, arts, athletics, any number of clubs and organizations. By their experiences in and out of the classrooms to this point, your sons have become more and more aware of where their interests, abilities, and academic achievements will guide them. So over the next 2 years, our coordinated counseling program, that's school and college, and I know you're familiar with that as well, is structured to guide your sons in taking full advantage of all that Prep has to offer, supporting them as they make solid academic and life decisions, supporting them as they balance their energies and efforts to make room for those areas of growth that they become aware of, and assisting them to prioritize and manage, a lot of key words in there, prioritize and manage their academics and their activities well. In short, it's been our goal that they are prepared to confidently engage the upper years here at Fairfield Prep and to manage significant decisions which await them as they continue to define and develop themselves personally and intellectually. So know that we're well coordinated. School and college counselors work together to support your sons. We meet regularly to review their progress, and we will both be walking along with them over the next 2 years. I will say that college counseling will take front and center at this point, obviously beginning in junior year, but they always will have a school and college counselor, and we will be working together to support them. Tonight we'll bring you up to the present in terms of this year's school and college counseling activities and preview strategies, goals, and activities for the next 2 years as your sons continue to develop. Our goal is that you be aware. That's really kind of the theme of our most recent presentation to sophomores, that is when the college counselors stepped into that room. We talked about awareness of what's ahead so that you can be prepared for it. Linking the first 2 years with the next 2, you'll recognize, as I already said, a distinct change in PrEP's counseling program, both on the school side and on the college counseling side, which now moves intentionally into encouraging your sons to more fully recognize and refine their talents and interests, and then translate those into choices, which will guide them through the specific tasks of the college process. The next life steps will present them with challenges and choices, and we like to view those challenges and choices as opportunities for growth. So, for example, as they move to the next school year at Fairfield Prep, they'll engage things like Kairos retreat. Some of you may have heard about that from older sons who have been at Fairfield Prep. A deeper relationship with service, required, but they'll engage that. Areas of commitment to areas of interest and talent inside and outside of the classroom. The list is endless. And the end goal is to be the graduate at graduation. And I'm sure you know what that is. That is to step up to the 5 pillars, being open to growth, religious, loving, intellectually competent, and committed to justice. And you know what? Colleges know that's who we stand for. It's in our profile. Colleges are very well aware that our students are challenged in all of those areas. And that's something that certainly helps them to be known when they do apply to colleges. The number and importance of tasks that juniors and seniors manage increases significantly, and so does the gravity of the work they're doing. So we as school and college counselors are well aware of those challenges and well equipped to support your sons. For your sons, it's all about taking important steps in their personal and academic lives. The focus is on encouraging. Our focus is on encouraging them to approach the challenges with confidence. We're going to proceed with our program now, and Mrs. Amy Stern's going to come up and talk a little bit about the sophomore year. And Amy will be followed by Peter Francini, then Rick Hutchinson. So if each will introduce the other, we'll be nice and smooth and seamless, and then I'll come up for a few points at the end. Thank you. Amy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, John. It's great to spend this time together to talk about your sons and our continued support in meeting with them in the classroom, one-on-one, and then collaborating even more now with your son's college counselor as they move towards their years as being upperclassmen. So alongside Dean, Lynn, Laura, and myself, we'll continue on for 2 more years as your son's school counselors. And it's nice to be able to do that, to move along with them. This is our 2nd class where the boys have both a school counselor for 4 years and now layering in the college counselor. So as you may have heard from your sons this year, probably several times, sophomore year is a lot. It's tough. We're seeing them less in our offices about their classes and academics, which is a good thing. They're figuring it out and moving their way through the year. They're moving towards summer. They're certainly ready for that. So we hope, though, that along with the obstacles they faced this year and some growing pains, that this year they're collecting plenty of highlights and positive experiences. Sophomore year is rigorous, but they'll be ready for junior year. They'll come out on the other side of classes like Western civilization and physics with better study skills and mental fortitude, we hope. Tonight's a great time to look back and to look forward. And we want to remind you and always wanting your sons to know that we're here for you, we're here for them. So as you're hearing, you'll hear this several times. Please reach out anytime if we can help, if we can nudge your sons to go on a retreat or to sign up for an experience. We're really here to support the guys, to check in if a class is hard, to connect them to all the resources that we have available to them in the academic center, their teachers being really their main supporter. They see them in the classroom every day. So we're here to encourage, to nudge, to be a part of the team, to support your boys moving forward as well. So moving forward, they'll see their college counselors more and more. They'll be encouraged to start thinking more intentionally about life after prep and what that might look like, and of course in an individualized way. So I think actually I need to move forward to, these are the topics that have been covered. This includes last year, some of the topics, especially the first couple, transition to prep, safe school plan. I always say with sophomores, if I take it back to our August orientation days and their first days back to school this year, there's something about sophomore year and the way the boys carry themselves, they're certainly more settled in this year. And it's always a really nice thing to see that the sophomores are figuring themselves out more and figuring out this space and where they want to get involved. And we really hope that they continue with that growth junior year and try new things, right? It's not too late to try a new sport, and new opportunities come their way. Kairos retreat, if they didn't go on Urban Plunge as a sophomore, they can do that as a junior. Hopefully they lean more into their service opportunities or find one that really is one that they can connect with. So this year as school counselors, we've continued to check in with sophomores one-on-one in supporting their academics, their involvement, like I said, introducing and letting them know about certain experiences that are coming their way. And we've talked to some of them about challenges. Our door is really always open for those things. And what you see here, like I said, these are the topics for when we see them in seminar on the block days. They've seen both school and college counselors this year for seminar. So they've had a mix of who they see, and sometimes they'll see a school and a college counselor at the same time. And Pete Francini will share more about the college side in just a bit. So to highlight just a couple of these seminar topics, I won't go through all of them, but today we were in class for the theology classes, and we'll be in class tomorrow, and we're focusing on building their resume and being more intentional about putting down what they've been up to this year and last year and over the summer, so that they have that all organized. And so we went on to Naviance, and we had them go to the About Me section, and they went to the resume, and they're starting to put in their education and, you know, thinking about what's my graduation year, so they were putting that in, and their service, their work experiences, their sports, their extracurriculars and clubs. Sometimes they're not really thinking about what could go onto the resume that's extra, so we talked about if they're part of a musical ensemble at school this year, making sure that's on there. Work, of course, part-time work's a great thing to have. Maybe they were a leader or helping out at an open house. So all those little things have really added up to their prep experience and what they've been up to. So just reminding them of like what's going to go on there and the purpose of a resume and why they want to start tracking that information. So that's what we're covering this week in seminar. Last seminar, I think it says up there, they had a preview of like what we're doing this evening. So they were also able to look at junior year with the college counselors to just have an idea of what's going to be happening next year, what to expect. The goal is that they're not stressed and worried, that they feel prepared one thing at a time. It's great to look ahead, but then as a school counselor, I'm always wanting to emphasize with the students to be where your feet are. We hear that a lot here too from Dr. McCormick, who's in campus ministry, to think about the future. That's exciting, hopefully not too stressful, but then bring it back and be where your feet are. That's really important. We ask them questions today in class or tomorrow if we see them about, is there room for growth, right? Like what have the last 2 years looked like, but is there room to add to your prep experience? Not because you should, but because you're gonna get a lot out of that if you get involved with retreats and clubs and mix up what you've been up to. But then also be consistent. If you found something you enjoy doing, then lean into that more. Maybe that even becomes a part-time job. If you're playing golf, then we'll hear about the guys that are a caddy. Or if you love basketball, then you can be a basketball coach over the summer for a camp. If you love music, same thing, you can do music lessons. So leaning into what you already like. So other topics here, I won't go through all those, but now I will pass it over to Pete Francini, who will talk about the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I guess by show of hands, how many guys, this is your oldest child be going off to college? So almost everyone in the room. I'm channeling Miss Silence, where she would tell you guys, relax. We got you guys covered. We've got lots of experience among all of us, 18 years, 20 years plus for almost everyone in the room for the college counselor. So this is, as I say, this is not our first rodeo. In terms of the college and the road ahead, these are often questions we hear from parents every year. Am I behind? What should I, the parent, be doing right now? What should my son be doing right now? And oftentimes, some of you guys are laughing, sometimes I get those questions this time of the year. I've been getting a lot of those recently. And as John says, small steps, keep a good pace. We are here to guide you. As I said, this is our sole job here at Prep, is to guide your sons through the college process and make it as seamless and as easy as possible. So as I said, am I behind? Relax. You're not behind. It's sophomore year. It's the end of sophomore year. It's a great opportunity for your sons. We'll be in and out of the office, the college counselors, the next 2 weeks doing AP exams. But if your son has an opportunity to even come in for just 10 minutes, just to get a one or two schools just to go think about moving forward, highly, highly recommend it. I had a young man in my office today. He's like, oh, my parents are from Buffalo. I'm like, great, perfect. You going there this summer? Yes. Awesome. Okay, cool. Here are these 2 or 3 schools I want you to go look at. Go look at Syracuse, go look at Ithaca, look at Hobart, maybe visit Union on the way home. You don't have to visit all of them. Just pick 2. And the goal is just to see what is out there. You don't know what you might want, young man, until you're actually on campus and get a feel for things, and mom or dad get a feel for things. All of a sudden, kids don't know how far things are in a car until it's 5.5 hours or 3.5 hours on a plane. One of the other questions we often get is, what should I, the parent, be doing right now? And as we talked about, it's just encouraging engagement in the process. As I just mentioned earlier, sample a few colleges. I had a young man, same young man was in my office. We all of a sudden had 20 schools on his list, and I'm like, dude, I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, let's just delete all these. Let's put the 4 I just mentioned in New York and the 2 in wherever, South Carolina, and we'll just move on from there. And he's like, okay, cool. And then you go visit those 2. Let's say he likes them, and then we add 2 more and go in different directions. So you start slowly building. But everyone's different. Some kids like the big list, and we go with that. So, and sometimes parents like options too. But sample a college through an initial visit. Through the college fair. By show of hands, how many of your sons or even the parents went to the college fair at the Southern Connecticut College Fair, the amphitheater, last week? Okay? We'll have another, right, John? We'll have another Southern Connecticut College Fair is doing a same exact thing with over 200 plus schools. Will be here, I think, in October? September 30th, okay? I knew John would have the answer. I certainly did not. But they'll be here again, colleges from all across the United States. So it's not just regional schools in the Northeast. It's literally colleges from all across the United States. We'll be here. And you don't have to travel that far to go. Bridgeport's right there. So you can literally see the amphitheater from our building. So I highly recommend little things like that. And when the students go, remember your sons went, they had to fill out the QR code, the college scanned it. That's showing engagement. That's showing interest in the school. And 9 times out of 10, assuming the college rep doesn't leave that school, that's the person then reading your son's application when they apply. So that's really important, because oftentimes you visit them there in the spring. All of a sudden you go on the tour, and by chance, that's the person giving the info session, and it's like, you look familiar. It's like, I do. So that's kind of how things work. So engage in those conversations. Reflection regarding what kind of college is best. As I said, is it public? Is it private? Is it rural? Is it urban? Locations, distance from home. I've noticed recently, Mr. and I always joke, a lot of kids don't know parts of the country. I had a young man in my office this week who didn't know that South Carolina and North Carolina, wherever they were, thought they were actually Alabama and Mississippi, so I'm concerned right there. So that was interesting. So that kid's not allowed to leave the state just yet. So anyway, so creating that initial list with your son, where to visit, use us as resources. Next year, if you're going to the Southern Connecticut College Fair, have your son come see his counselor right before. We can narrow that list of 200 down to 5 or 10 really quickly. As I said, that's what we do. And what can your son be doing right now? So that's what the parents be doing, helping encourage those conversations, help your son, find where to go to sign up to visit. When it comes to the parent, you can help your son, but doing an official visit of a school, hence, if that family is going up to Buffalo or wherever they're going or wherever you're choosing to go this summer, do an official visit. A lot of colleges, I know John and I were talking about this today at Fairfield U, they don't do weekend tours or info sessions. It's only during the week. So if you're going somewhere, do the best you can of doing an official tour. And if you can't, do the drive-through, do the walk-around, and then maybe follow up with the admissions rep saying, hey, absolutely loved Clemson. Was here on campus, absolutely beautiful here in the summer. Can't wait to come back when there's students on campus in the fall. Take care, have a great summer. Sincerely, Bob Jones, whoever it might be. So, but what can your son be doing? Highly encourage them to start seeing their college counselors more. I had a young man come into my office, I don't know, Monday or Tuesday. He didn't even sit down, and we literally created 10 schools on his list in 5 minutes just from our conversation. Wanted to give me an update on his grades. literally didn't even sit down. We had a conversation for 10 minutes, and that's kind of how it went. So maybe he was sitting all day. I'm not sure. But even stuff like that stuff goes a long way in getting to know us. Because as I said, the college counselor is the one writing your son's letters of recommendation, not the school counselors. So I keep nudging students to kind of come and see us. So, but what else can your son be doing right now? Building those activities resumes. I was talking to a parent earlier. Son went on an urban plunge earlier in the year, and my comment was, okay, now it's that young man's opportunity to lead an urban plunge next year, or go on a Kairos retreat. As Amy was saying, I always encourage those things do things that make prep unique. The Kairos retreats, the urban plunge, the Ignatian teach-ins, Habitat for Humanity, all those things, because not all schools have those programs. So that's what separates us from other places. And having your son continue to build those interests, where are they investing their time, and where are they having the greatest impact? Is it on the baseball field? Is it on the ski team? Is it through the mock trial club? Whatever it might be, all of those things are important. Just follow your passions, young man, is what I would say, and we'll figure it out. Standardized testing for some people, that might be that might be something that your son can work on right now over the summer, but I would say 9 times out of 10, it's talk to your college counselor, but you probably don't need to be rushing into anything right now, especially if they're just taking geometry this year. A lot of Algebra 2 is on the SAT. They will learn that next year. Start taking standardized testing in the spring, not necessarily rushing to do test prep this summer, but talk to your college counselor about that, specifically about your son. And then, as I said, I already mentioned this earlier, encourage your son to start meet your college counselor, explore different college options, start thinking about things. This meeting kind of indicates like we're halfway through high school, which is kind of crazy as it seems. It feels like he just applied and he just got in and he's a freshman, and now we're talking college. Wait, what? So one step at a time. Everything's up here, but the official tours, I already mentioned a lot of this stuff. NCAA, for those young men who are going to be going off to compete athletically in college, Division II, Division III, Division I, they can always register for the NCAA Eligibility Center. I still call it the clearinghouse. It hasn't been called that in about 15 years. So, but anyway, those are just some of the things your son will be just working on and looking at. So having them check in with us is honestly the number one thing, and we can create that initial college list. But build your resume, maintain grades. Those are my 2 basic things that students should be focusing on. Now Rick's going to talk a little bit about standardized testing, if I'm not mistaken.
Hi, once again, Rick Hutchinson, one of the college counselors. So I have the enviable or unenviable task to talk about the thing that everyone hates, which is standardized testing. Standardized testing in the college planning process is really the first thing that sort of hits them in sophomore year, because we do those practice tests. They do a PSAT and they've done a pre-ACT. So it's the first time they're really experiencing that. So they've gone through that. So I'm just going to give you a sense that if you have an older child right now, you probably understand sort of a little bit what's been going on with standardized testing. For those who haven't, let me just kind of give you a little the lay of the land. So when COVID hit, the availability of testing just sort of coming to a halt. Pretty much actually every college is forced in a situation of going what we call test optional. And to understand what test optional means, it basically means the student gets to decide whether the testing can be a part of their application or not. As we sort of distance ourselves from that time, we're sort of going into a different place right now. Some colleges have returned to requiring testing. It's mostly larger state schools highlighted in the Midwest and down south. And then also some very highly selective colleges, but not all. About half the Ivy Leagues require testing, half don't. So it really is a school by institution's basis on whether they want standardized testing to be part of their admission process. But looking at the big picture, the vast majority of schools around the United States do remain test optional, meaning it is the option on whether the student can submit those to the colleges or not. And we certainly are seeing a wide range. We're going through the seniors right now of college students gaining admission to the schools that they're very interested in without submitting testing. Now, that being said, I want to be clear that just because it's test optional doesn't mean that the colleges don't care about testing. They do. It is something that can enhance an application. It could take a student possibly that's on the margin and maybe really sort of boost them into the admission pile. And we are finding that some colleges, And this is a little frustrating, and this is where the college counselor can sort of help be a guide. They are test optional on the surface, but behind the scenes, they're really a bit more test preferred. And we're sort of getting a better read on that as each year goes by. That's not a large group, but it is a band of colleges that it becomes clear that they'll accept applications without testing, but be aware that they do like to see it. And we can help the students with that. So what is it sort of that prep does with standardized testing, and what is it that the student needs to be thinking about? We handle all the preparation tests on that end. So they did a PSAT this past fall. They will do another PSAT next fall. We also did a pre-ACT, which is the practice round of the ACT, and that took place about a month ago. The one thing to be aware of is we're in a sort of caught in a bind here, is that the ACT is going through a redesign. The new version will be started next fall. Unfortunately, the pre-ACT that they offered, and the only one they did offer, was the old versions. There is some similarities and some overlap, but the new version, so looking at a pre-ACT score that we had may not be as strong a predictor as possibly in past years. It's just sort of an unfortunate circumstance, just a sort of a 1 year. But at least it gave the students a little bit of an idea of what at least the ACT feels like, and we can sort of discuss the types of changes that the ACT is going through. When do most students look to be starting to take official testing? Well, if they're feeling ready, sometimes students can start in the fall of junior year. If they're feeling ready, if your student is just really in that place and they feel they've tested well in the practice test, they can start. Most students are really looking to take testing in the spring of their junior year and then into the early fall of senior year. So that's usually the time frame. We generally recommend them to take 2 to 3 tests. There's no need to take both the SAT and ACT. If you want to, feel free to do so. It's a lot of testing. It's a lot of Saturdays. They are pretty different tests in terms of their formats, how they're scored. So, a preparation for an SAT is not necessarily going to benefit you that much for an ACT, with the exception of the math section. It helps a little bit. So usually planning on taking it 2 to 3 times. A great format a lot of students follow is trying to take it twice in the spring of junior year and then leaving a third option for the fall of senior if they feel they need to take another test score. The students, we do all the prep practice tests. The students are going to actually sort of be signing themselves up. Prep is not a test site, and all students have their own private accounts for testing. Your sons all have a College Board account. They had to have it to take the PSAT. In terms of an ACT account, they may or may not have set that up. They don't have to have that in order for us to do the pre-ACT, so the student would have to sort of individually set that up, and you would use those accounts. Strongly advise you, if your son says, I can't remember my account, don't create a second account. Do not do that. You will have a lot of headaches, and headaches that the college counselors cannot solve. We have tried and we can't. So stick to the account that they made. I can tell you that, at least with the College Board, if you got to get them on the phone, sometimes you have to sort of hang on the phone for a while, but once you get them on the phone, they're actually am I actually saying something nice about the College Board? They're actually pretty helpful in solving any problems. You have to wait a little bit, but they pretty much will not get off the phone until they solve that problem for you. And I do compliment them on that if you have any types of issues. So test preparation, I think Pete mentioned this. I think we do get asked, should my son consider test preparation perhaps in the summer of sophomore year or the fall of junior year? I would say if you're projecting that he's going to take an official test, an SAT or ACT in the fall of junior year, then perhaps that's okay. Most students, that's not their timing. Taking a test prep in the summer between sophomore year, but not taking an official test until the spring of junior year, probably is not going to be very effective. Those skills sort of fade a little bit, and most test prepping, whether you do through an agency or private tutor or even individualized testing, individualized prepping is usually best if you're doing it sort of leading up to a test date. You'll see if you do some type of class, often it'll run for about 2 months leading up the last session, usually about a week before the testing takes place. So that would be the timing that I would suggest, and I think that's really depends on your son. Sometimes it's a little bit on his timing, what his schedule might look like. So if you're thinking the summer is better, then do it. Most students, it's just hard to get into the testing mode in the summer, and I can certainly understand that. And then ultimately with standardized testing, when they get into senior year and they're sort of facing those decisions on, do I submit my test score to a college or not, that's really the great conversations you can have with your college counselor, and we can sort of help guide you. Ultimately, we always let the student make the decision, it's their application, but we can at least give you some guidance on where that might go. Sometimes it can be very obvious. There's some scores that are obviously strong for other students. It didn't play out as well. We're going to let their grades do it. But those ones in the middle, we can certainly help students be a guide. This is the list of testing dates. I know we don't need to go through these, but it gives you an idea how many there are. It is important. I think this, more than anything, it's important to sort of get, these are all available on the ACT site or the College Board, but it's important to sort of get a calendar and sort of map this out based on your son's schedules. So, because if you're looking 2 to 3 times, if you notice, it's not offered as much as you think. So, if you're an SAT test taker and you're looking at the spring of next year, it's March, May, and June. Those are the 3 dates. So if you're thinking about taking it twice, those are your 3 options for that time. They do have a few more in late summer and early fall. So it's just sort of mapping it out and having a plan so that they know what's going on. It usually has a lot to do with your son's schedule and what works for him. If they do an activity in the spring, like a spring sport, or they're in the play in the spring, or they're very involved in the concert, obviously that can take up a lot of time, so you have to sort of map out what's appropriate in terms of taking the testing and what they've got going on in their lives. So that's where standardized testing is. We always can be a guide with them. I think right now it's great that they experience the PSAT and pre-ACT. Have a conversation on what they liked. We'll do another PSAT in the fall. Oh, the reason we don't do a second pre-ACT is that the ACT only offers it for sophomores. It's a test not offered for juniors. If it was, we would probably try to give it a try, but it's only offered for sophomores, so that's the reason for that. And John, I think it's up to you.
So going to round out with a few last thoughts, and then we'll take some questions. One of the things you've been hearing through all the presentations, there's some certain key words, some of them that I use, some others use. Words like balance. I think it's really important to maintain balance. Challenges, identify them, and really, again, confidence to take them on. Awareness. I think, the presentation that we did, in fact, what you're seeing tonight is kind of a little bit like what we presented to your sons in a recent seminar. Awareness of what's ahead so they can be prepared. Again, defining themselves. Again, we will be talking more specifically with your sons when they're juniors, especially in the spring, about crafting a college application, defining themselves. Because that's what the application helps to do, to define themselves to someone who they may never meet but will read an application. So defining and representing themselves, prioritizing. Again, there could be many distractions, and one of the things that you're going to see is junior year provides or presents many alternatives. So again, where are your strengths? I think that's really important. Again, leadership is a good word to be able to use. Pete talked a little bit about the college counselors writing recommendations. What are the words that we would want to use in representing your sons? Because in fact, we're one of the voices that sing in the choir behind them. Yeah, they take the lead, but again, their teachers and their counselors will sing in the choir behind them. So I think that's important as well. So how to define yourself or defining yourself. We're not going to tell them how to, but we're going to encourage them to do that. And as was already mentioned, Amy mentioned things like retreats, getting involved in those things. So in fact, it's not unusual at all. In fact, it's pretty much the norm that a student will experience something in sophomore year and again in junior year that really defines them. For example, it was mentioned that students lead urban plunges. Some of your sons might have done the plunge this year. And of course, that makes them eligible to lead the urban plunge. And you don't do that for credit. You do that because it's something that touched you in a way and you want to share it with someone else. So those are really awesome opportunities for your sons as well. And of course, I think in many ways your sons have to become good managers of themselves. Time management becomes, I think, maybe a little bit more important. They might get their licenses as juniors. They're going to have other, really good opportunities in their lives, social events, part-time jobs, things like that were mentioned, things that help them to define themselves and grow. So again, competing goods, there are lots of them, and I think it's important to learn to prioritize. And, school counselors are on board with that, absolutely, and college counselors too. One of the things that maybe might add a little bit of gloss, Amy spoke a little bit about how college counselors and school counselors work together. Well, when your sons were selecting, or requesting, I should say, their courses for junior year, it's a good opportunity or a good moment for the school and college counselors to sit together. What is it? Where are your strengths? Where do you want to demonstrate those strengths? It's very possible that they already have an idea of what they might want to do in college, although it's early for that. And so what courses are going to contribute? So I think those are the conversations we're having between college and school counselors, and that helps to work with your sons when they make choices like what courses to request. I think that's important as well. So yes, we're counselors, and so we're about the business of giving advice. So here we go. There's a slide of advice up here that I'd like to share very briefly. You might wonder, what's the difference between the slide earlier in the presentation, what can parents do, and this one that says, how can parents support? It's different. It's a different slide. This one probably, I think, speaks to a little bit of the collaboration between you and us. How can we work together to support your sons and help them to do those things like manage and represent and that kind of thing? So first of all, being aware of the many pressures that your sons are facing and helping them to balance. Again, there are students who get up in the morning early and they go to a preschool swim practice or whatever it might be, and then they have all of their classes, and after school they have service. In other words, being aware. In fact, we want to help their teachers to be aware of those things too. So we're advocates for your sons. So being aware of the pressures, and by the way, our students, as was already mentioned, if not all, almost all go to college upon graduation. Oh, there are some students who have some alternative paths, but we're like 98% go on to four-year colleges. And so in fact, there's that thought that, I got to get ready, I got to get ready, I got to get ready. And so, we're looking to ease the pressure. Pete mentioned it, small steps, and we're advocating small steps. Right? And one of those small steps is awareness and conversation. So get into the office, talk a little bit about it. If there's something that you sense that your son is stressing over, you know what? That's where Elaine Clark said it. We're on speed dial. Well, maybe not quite speed dial, but we're very available. It's email, it's phone calls, and we will have a junior parent night as well, by the way, and that's in January of junior year. I think it's really kind of nice for everyone to have a safe place and not be looking at, what are you doing about your application or what are you doing about college all the time. So point number two, maybe, how about those college talk-free zones? Maybe not necessarily now because there's probably not a lot of college talk going on, but as things progress, is there a little bit of a safe space there, for example? Sunday night from 8 to 9, whatever it might be, you decide. But this is some advice, and by the way, why do we give this advice? Because, sometimes students, they don't want to talk about it all the time. They have lots of good things going on in their lives that they'd rather talk about. And I always like this, as your sons become juniors and seniors, I'll see them in the hall, especially seniors, at the beginning of the year. I say, how you doing? And they want to give me a report on their college. I say, no. How you doing? How's life? What's going on with you? I mean, those are the things that we're interested in knowing about your sons. Those are the things that really kind of blossom in a counselor's recommendation. Because colleges want to know who's knocking on my door when your sons apply. I know this is in the future, but that's the awareness that we're trying to do. Remember, it's a process, again, and help them to understand that things need to be done step by step. And once again, if you feel like, your son is a step behind, and right now, as Pete said emphatically, no, he's not behind, give us a call. If you're not seeing any movement. And by the way, sometimes there's a lot of movement, but they're not ready to share it. Today's May 1, it's commitment day, and I had a student already today. I saw him at the middle of the day. He's one of my last few who hasn't really made his commitment, but he's made it. He's not ready to announce it. He says, I'll let you know by the end of the day. He was tossing up 2 schools. Came in and let me know by the end of the day. I'm not going to pressure him, certainly. They get enough of that already, so they'll speak when they're ready. Remember that each student's journey is unique. Boy, do we work with that. I mean, your sons, there's no lockstep. We don't expect them all to be in the same place, never. If a student comes in, first student comes in as a senior and says, hey, my application's all done, and the next one who comes in and says, hey, I haven't started yet, you know what, we're ready for you. And I know that's 2 years in the future, I get it, but the point is that we want you to know that we see your sons as unique individuals. In fact, those are the areas that we want to touch on when we represent them, and those are the areas we want to touch on in our conversations to encourage them to represent themselves authentically and uniquely. Those things are important as well. Keep us posted. It's already been said. Schedule calls and meetings. Yep, we're going to have a parent assembly in January of junior year and in September of senior year. Those are sort of strategic points. We're ready. It's already been said. Pete talked about it. We have lots of experience in the office. We work well together. You've heard from just about everyone tonight. You've heard almost everyone on the college side. We represent each other in terms of the things that were said tonight. One last thing I wanted to say, and then we'll take some questions if you have them. we had a presentation today with our juniors, right? And the theme of the presentation was return ready. Well, their return ready is return ready to kind of work over the summer, to work on your applications. But I think return ready can be said to every class at the end of the year. Return ready for the challenges of junior year, and they know that. We ask them at the beginning of the year, hey, what have you heard about junior year? And they say, we heard it's the most important year in high school. Okay, that's out there. It's in the air and the water. So returning ready for that is really important. So those are the kinds of things that we're speaking with your sons about. We're readily available. As Pete mentioned, we're going to be doing some stuff with AP tests over the next couple weeks. That's not a whole lot of fun, but something that needs to be done. And some of your sons are going to be taking those tests. We know that. But we are readily available, and we're certainly available to you as well by email. We do Zoom meetings. We do in-person meetings. We're here for you. And it's a good question. So this is about standardized testing colleges don't favor. And so that's one of the reasons why we'll give the pre-ACT and the PSAT so that students can decide which one will show them in their best light. Colleges do not prefer, absolutely. What they want to see is that your son is submitting the score, if it's going to be submitted, that shows him in his best light. So it would be really good if your sons didn't have to take both in order to see which one is best. That's why we give the practice tests. And sometimes they indicate very clearly, hey, you're going to be more on the ACT side or SAT side. It's a good question. We're going to be around. Just come up and say hello. Certainly stay in touch with us. We don't need to sweat questions out of you, you know what I'm saying? But if you have them, we're ready to answer them. So thank you for being here. It was great to see a good number of you here. And as was said over and over again, we're ready for you. All right. See you.